Commander Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of the USS Endeavour, watching as the crystalline spires of Kepler Prime sparkled under the planet's violet skies. After centuries of technological advancement and decades of interstellar diplomacy, humanity was finally on the cusp of joining the Galactic Council. Jake adjusted his dress uniform, tugging at the collar that felt too tight against his neck. The weight of responsibility pressed down on his shoulders, far heavier than the medals adorning his chest. "Commander, the delegation is ready to depart," Lieutenant Reyes announced from behind him. Jake nodded, taking one last look at the alien world below. This is it, then. The day humanity takes its place among the stars, down on the planet's surface, in a grand hall of flowing architecture that seemed to defy gravity. Diplomat Lisa Carter meticulously reviewed the treaty documents. Her fingers traced over the complex symbols and Earth Standard text, ensuring that every clause, every provision was exactly as negotiated. Captain Roy Blake stood nearby, his weathered face betraying nothing of the anxiety they all felt. "Everything in order?" he asked quietly. Lisa nodded, tucking a strand of chestnut hair behind her ear. 6 months of negotiations have led to this moment. The terms are fair: access to Council technology, protection under galactic law, trade routes opened. In return, we share our cultural archives and agree to Council oversight for the first decade. She smiled, her eyes bright with hope. "We're finally going to be part of something greater. Roy." The captain didn't return her smile. 20 years in deep space had taught him caution. "Let's hope the Council values us as much as we value them." Admiral Kate Sullivan entered the chamber, her presence commanding immediate attention. At 62, she was the most decorated officer in Earth's fleet, a veteran of the Mars conflict and architect of humanity's expansion to the outer solar system. Her silver hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her blue eyes missed nothing. "The Council representatives have arrived," she announced. "Final checks. Everyone. This is history in the making." The Galactic Council delegation floated in, quite literally, as the 3 primary representatives hovered above the ground on anti-gravity discs. The lead representative, Ambassador Zorlak, resembled a tall, slender humanoid with iridescent skin that shifted colors with his moods. Currently, he glowed a serene blue. "Greetings, children of Earth," he intoned, his voice melodious and soothing. "Today marks the 48th species to join our Grand Alliance. The stars welcome you." The signing ceremony proceeded with all the pomp that such a momentous occasion deserved. Dignitaries from Earth watched via quantum transmission. Representatives from various Council species lined the walls, their diverse forms, from crystalline entities to amorphous beings contained in environmental suits, a testament to the vastness of life in the galaxy. Lisa stepped forward when her moment came, taking the ceremonial pen in hand. She signed her name with a flourish, officially committing humanity to the Galactic Council. Ambassador Zorlak followed, his signature appearing as glowing glyphs that seemed to sink into the paper itself. "It is done," he announced, and the chamber erupted in applause. Celebrations lasted well into the Kepler night. Jake found himself in conversation with alien diplomats, exchanging stories and sharing the finer points of human culture. Lisa danced with Captain Blake, their usual formality dissolved in the euphoria of the moment. Even Admiral Sullivan allowed herself a glass of something that resembled champagne, but tasted of stardust and honey. None of them noticed the subtle communications passing between Council members, or the small fleet of ships departing Kepler Prime under the cover of darkness. 6 hours after the treaty was signed, Jake was back aboard the Endeavour, preparing for the return journey to Earth. The bridge was quiet, the crew still recovering from the previous night's festivities. "Commander," the communications officer called, her voice tight with alarm. "Emergency transmission from Earth." Jake's blood ran cold. "Put it through." Admiral Sullivan's face appeared on the main screen, her expression grim. "Morrison, are you alone?" "Just my bridge crew, Admiral." "Listen carefully. The Council has betrayed us. A massive armada appeared in Earth orbit 30 minutes ago. They're claiming right of occupation under the treaty." Jake felt as though the deck had dropped from beneath his feet. "That's impossible. There was nothing in the treaty about—" "There was hidden text, encoded in quantum particles within the document itself. Our scientists just detected it. The glyphs Zorlak used to sign, they activated the hidden clauses." Sullivan's image flickered. "They're landing troops now, claiming protective custody of our population. It's a planetary-scale enslavement. Jake." "My God," Jake whispered. "Lisa?" "Detained, along with the rest of the diplomatic corps. Blake managed to get a message out before they took him." Sullivan leaned closer to the camera. "I'm at the Rocky Mountain Command Center with Ben Hayes. We're going dark soon. Morrison, you need to run. Get the Endeavor out of Council space. Rally what colonies you can. This isn't over." "Admiral, I can't just leave." "That's an order, Commander. Earth needs you free and fighting. Sullivan out." The screen went dark, leaving Jake staring at his own reflection. Around him, his crew sat in stunned silence. "Sir," his first officer finally ventured, "what are your orders?" Jake straightened, his mind racing through possibilities, each more desperate than the last. "Set course for the Io mining colony, maximum speed, and erase all navigational records of Earth colonies beyond Jupiter. As of this moment, the Endeavor is at war. On Earth, chaos reigned. The Council ships, massive constructs that blotted out the sun over major cities, deployed troops with ruthless efficiency. They weren't soldiers in the human sense, but automated enforcers, sleek, 10-foot-tall machines with multiple articulated limbs and energy weapons that could stun or kill. Citizens of Earth. The message repeated in every language, broadcast on all frequencies. The Galactic Council has assumed protective authority over your world. Comply with all directives. Resistance will result in corrective measures. This is for your own safety. In Denver, deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Sullivan and Colonel Ben Hayes watched the invasion unfold through a network of hidden cameras. The bunker, built during the asteroid mining wars of the 24th century, was shielded from all known scanning technologies. "They're herding people into processing centers," Hayes observed, his voice tight. A former Special Forces operator, he'd fought in conflicts across the solar system, but nothing had prepared him for seeing his homeland under alien occupation. "Look at those neural collars they're fitting. Some kind of control technology." Sullivan nodded grimly. "What's our status?" 37 officers and specialists accounted for. Dr. Amy Rodriguez is here. She was consulting on the plasma weapon program when the attack began. We've got about 20 combat-ready Marines and enough supplies for 6 months. "And communications?" Hayes gestured to a young woman, hunched over a complex array of equipment. "Susan Clark is working on it. If anyone can establish secure channels with our off-world colonies, it's her." Sullivan approached the communications specialist, who looked up with red-rimmed eyes. "Any luck contacting the Mars station?" "Yes, ma'am," Susan replied. "Captain Murphy reports all Council personnel have been contained. The station is secure, but they're expecting retaliation." "Good man," Sullivan murmured. Paul Murphy had been her protege once, a brilliant tactician with a knack for unconventional warfare. "Tell him to prepare for hit-and-run operations. We need to keep the Council off balance while we build our strength." In a laboratory deeper within the complex, Dr. Amy Rodriguez stood surrounded by disassembled alien technology, samples collected over years of cautious exchange with Council species. At 43, she was the leading expert on xenotechnology integration, with a particular focus on weapons systems. "They never expected us to understand their tech," she told Hayes, when he came to check on her progress. Arrogance. They shared just enough to impress us, thinking we couldn't reverse engineer the principles. She held up what looked like a modified rifle. This plasma projector now operates at 120% of Council standard, and I've removed the command lockouts. Hayes raised an eyebrow. How many can you make? Amy smiled grimly. With the fabrication units here, enough to make the Council regret underestimating humanity. The USS Endeavour reached Io in record time. The ship's engines pushed beyond recommended limits. Jake found the mining colony already on high alert. News of the invasion had spread through emergency channels. Most of the Council representatives just disappeared overnight, the colony administrator explained. Left on a transport without explanation. We figured something was wrong. How many ships do you have? Jake asked. 6 mining vessels, 3 security cutters. Nothing that could stand up to a Council warship. We're not going to fight them head-on, Jake said. Not yet. Start converting the mining vessels for combat. Use the mineral extraction lasers as weapons. And I need your best pilots. Within days, the first acts of resistance began. From Mars, Paul Murphy led daring raids against Council supply lines. His small fleet of retrofitted science vessels striking from the asteroid belt before disappearing back into the darkness of space. On Earth, small groups of humans who had avoided the initial roundups sabotaged Council operations, guided by encrypted messages from Sullivan's bunker. The Council responded with escalating force. Cities that harbored resistance fighters saw increased patrols. Public executions became common. And yet, for each resistance cell destroyed, 2 more seemed to emerge. A month into the occupation, the first cracks in the Council's united front began to appear. Susan Clark, monitoring Council communications, detected unusual patterns. They're arguing among themselves, she reported to Sullivan. Some species, particularly the Trialaxians and the aquatic Hydrosians, seem uncomfortable with the occupation. There's talk of excessive measures and violations of founding principles. Sullivan leaned forward. Can you establish contact with these dissidents? I believe so. The Trialaxian communication protocols are surprisingly similar to our quantum encryption methods. Do it. We need allies, even reluctant ones. On the Endeavour, now the centerpiece of a growing fleet of converted civilian vessels, Jake received the first transmission from a potential Council defector. The Trialaxian representative, a being that resembled a humanoid composed of living stone, spoke with obvious distress. Commander Morrison, I am Krasatar, third speaker for the Trialaxian Collective. What has been done to your world violates the true spirit of the Council. Many of us were told this was a peacekeeping operation, that humans had requested assistance following some internal crisis. That's a lie, Jake replied firmly. We were betrayed. Yes, I see that now. The evidence your Admiral Sullivan provided is disturbing. There are others who feel as I do. The Hydrosians, the Pax Centauri, even some factions among the Vorax. What are you proposing? Alliance, resistance. The Council leadership has grown corrupt, using its power to subjugate rather than unite. Your people are merely the latest victims. Help us reform the Council, Commander, and we will help you free Earth. The rebellion spread like wildfire after that. On mining worlds throughout Council space, Trialaxian workers sabotaged shipments bound for the occupation force. In the vast oceans of Hydrus Prime, aquatic gorillas disrupted underwater data relays that connected Council worlds. Small but critical supply ships disappeared en route to Council military installations. 3 months after the invasion, humanity had transformed from victim to the catalyst for a galaxy-wide uprising. In the Rocky Mountain bunker, Amy Rodriguez made another breakthrough, working with data provided by their alien allies. She cracked the command codes for the Council's automated defense systems. It's like they never considered security from within, she explained to Sullivan and Hayes. Their whole system is built on trust between Council members, with safeguards against outside threats. But if you have legitimate access credentials, like the ones our Trialaxian friends provided, you can rewrite command priorities. Sullivan's eyes gleamed. You're saying we can turn their own weapons against them? Not all of them. The more sophisticated units have biological components that require direct oversight. But the automated turrets, drone ships, even some of the enforcement units, yes, we can flip them. The plan took shape quickly. Coordinated strikes would hit key council installations across Earth simultaneously, targeting command centers where the control signals originated. At the same time, the growing rebel fleet under Jake's command would engage the Council Armada in Earth orbit, drawing their attention upward while the ground assault proceeded. The morning of the attack, Sullivan addressed the resistance fighters gathered in the bunker's main chamber. Today, we strike the first real blow for Earth's freedom. We are not alone in this fight. Beings from a dozen worlds stand with us, having recognized the corruption at the Council's core. She paused, looking at each face in turn. Some of us won't return, but those who fall will do so knowing they fought not just for humanity, but for all free peoples of the galaxy. Godspeed. The attack began with a single transmission, a complex code burst designed by Amy Rodriguez that spread through the Council's network like a virus. Across Earth, automated defense turrets swiveled and opened fire on their former masters. Enforcement units froze in place or turned on their commanders. Shields protecting Council installations flickered and died. From hidden bases around the globe, resistance fighters emerged, armed with the enhanced weapons Amy had designed. They struck with precision, focusing on command nodes and detention centers in London, Paris, New York, Beijing, and 100 other cities. The carefully constructed apparatus of control began to crumble. In orbit, Jake led a flotilla of 50 ships, a mix of converted mining vessels, captured Council scouts, and the few military craft that had escaped the initial invasion. Against them stood 200 Council warships, imposing leviathans, bristling with weapon emplacements. All ships, this is Commander Morrison. Hold formation and prepare to engage on my mark. Jake's voice was steady despite the odds they faced. Remember your training. Use the asteroid debris for cover. Strike and move. Don't give them a stationary target. The space battle erupted in spectacular fashion. The darkness above Earth suddenly illuminated by energy weapons and explosive decompressions. Council ships, expecting an easy victory against the primitive human fleet, were unprepared for the upgraded weapons and unconventional tactics their opponents employed. They're splitting their formation, Jake's tactical officer reported. Trying to flank us. Just as we predicted, Jake replied. Signal Captain Reyes. Bring in Battle Group 2. From behind the moon, 30 more ships appeared. The reinforcements Jake had been carefully assembling from the outer colonies. They struck the Council's exposed flank, causing chaos in the enemy formation. Meanwhile, on Earth, the tide was turning. Council forces, cut off from orbital support and fighting enemies on multiple fronts, began to retreat to fortified positions. In Denver, Sullivan led a force directly against the regional command center, her troops bolstered by defecting Trialaxian warriors whose stone-like bodies absorbed energy weapon fire. "Push forward!" she shouted as they breached the outer defenses. Dr. Rodriguez's override codes should deactivate the inner security grid in 3, 2, 1. On cue, the glowing energy barriers ahead of them winked out. The resistance forces poured in, engaging the Biological Council commanders, who had suddenly lost their technological advantage. It was close-quarters combat now, where human determination and Trialaxian strength made a formidable combination. Sullivan fought her way to the command center, Hayes at her side. They found the regional director, a tall, spindly being with 4 arms and eyes that rotated independently, attempting to purge the facility's data cores. "Step away from the console," Sullivan ordered, her plasma rifle leveled at the alien center mass. The director turned slowly. Admiral Sullivan, your resistance is impressive but futile. The Council has ruled for 10,000 years. We will not be overthrown by primitives. You're looking at the future, Sullivan replied. Stand down and live to see it. For a moment, it seemed the director might comply. Then, with shocking speed, one of his forearms whipped toward a hidden weapon. Hayes fired first. The plasma burst, catching the alien square in the chest. The director collapsed, his exoskeleton crackling with residual energy. Secure the command codes, Sullivan ordered, stepping over the fallen alien. And get me a direct line to the orbital fleet. In space, the battle had reached its critical phase. Jake's forces had suffered losses, 15 ships destroyed or disabled, but they had inflicted proportionally greater damage on the Council fleet. The massive flagship of Admiral Vexar, the Council's military commander, loomed ahead, its point defense systems creating a seemingly impenetrable barrier of energy. All ships, focus fire on grid coordinates 227 by 348, Jake commanded. Create a breach for the boarding teams. A concentrated barrage struck the flagship at the designated point, momentarily overloading its shields. 5 small, fast craft shot through the gap, latching onto the flagship's hull like remoras on a shark. From each, a boarding team equipped with vacuum suits and breaching charges emerged. Jake led the central team, cutting through the hull with a plasma torch while point defense turrets fired blindly around them, unable to target at such close range. "We're in," he announced as the hull plate gave way. Team 1, secure the bridge. Team 2, engine room. Teams 3 and 4, take out those weapon control centers. Team 5, with me to the central computer core. They fought their way through the massive ship, encountering both automated defenses and biological crew members. The Council forces were clearly unprepared for boarders, their internal security focused on repelling attacks from outside, not enemies already within their perimeter. Jake's team reached the computer core, a massive crystalline structure pulsing with light and energy. Dr. Rodriguez had briefed them on their objective: plant specialized devices that would transmit override codes directly into the flagship's command network, giving them control of its systems. Charges set, his technical specialist reported. Initiating transmission. Now. Throughout the massive vessel, systems began to shut down or transfer to human control. Weapon emplacements went dark. Internal barriers trapped Council crew members in their sections. On the bridge, the boarding team found themselves facing a cornered Admiral Vexar. The Admiral was an imposing figure, a cybernetically enhanced being from one of the Council's elder races, where organic limbs had once been, gleaming metal appendages now extended. His face was a disturbing blend of flesh and machinery, with glowing red sensors where eyes should have been. "Humans," he hissed, the word dripping with contempt. "You were meant to serve, not challenge. The Council determined your species had useful attributes, physical adaptability, mental flexibility, but required guidance." "You mean enslavement," replied the boarding team leader, keeping her weapon trained on the Admiral. "A temporary condition. A mere century or two of service before elevation to limited Council status." Vexar's mechanical arms twitched. "Now, you have ensured your extinction." "I don't think so." Jake's voice came through the ship-wide communication system. "Admiral Vexar, your flagship is under our control. Your fleet is in disarray, and all across Council space, the species you've subjugated are rising up." Jake entered the bridge, plasma rifle at the ready. "Surrender your forces, or be destroyed by them." For a long moment, Vexar was silent, his mechanical eyes scanning the situation. Then, with a gesture that might have been resignation, he activated his communication implant. "All Council vessels, stand down. I repeat, stand down." The Battle of Titan, as it would later be known, fought in the shadow of Saturn's largest moon, marked the turning point in the war. News of the Council flagship's capture spread rapidly through the Galactic communication network, inspiring further uprisings on dozens of worlds. On Earth, the resistance forces consolidated their gains. Council troops, cut off from orbital support and facing hostile populations, began to surrender in increasing numbers. The neural collars were deactivated, freeing humans from direct control. City by city, the planet was reclaimed. In the Rocky Mountain bunker, Admiral Sullivan received the news of the space battle's outcome with grim satisfaction. "Begin broadcasting on all frequencies," she ordered Susan Clark. The message we discussed. Throughout Earth, then across the solar system, and finally spanning the galaxy itself. A single word was transmitted, repeated in every known language and communication format. "Run!" It was a warning to the remaining Council loyalists. A declaration that the tide had turned irreversibly. It became the rallying cry of the rebellion. Simple, powerful, unmistakable in its meaning. In the months that followed, the combined forces of humans and allied species pushed deeper into Council space. Roy Blake, freed from detention during the initial uprising, took command of a mixed fleet of human and alien vessels. They liberated world after world, finding increasingly little resistance as Council authority crumbled. Lisa Carter, bearing the weight of her unwitting role in Earth's betrayal, dedicated herself to crafting a new galactic charter, one built on true equality and transparency. She worked closely with representatives from formerly subjugated species, ensuring that power could never again concentrate in the hands of a corrupt few. The final assault came 5 months after the invasion of Earth. A massive rebel fleet, comprising vessels from 23 different species, converged on the Galactic Central Station, the heart of Council power. The station was a marvel of engineering, an artificial world constructed around a captured neutron star, drawing seemingly limitless energy from its rotation. "All ships, maintain formation," Jake ordered from the bridge of the captured flagship, now renamed Liberty. "Our infiltration teams are already aboard. Wait for their signal before commencing the attack." Within the station, Paul Murphy led a team of human and alien commandos through maintenance tunnels and service corridors. They had entered disguised as maintenance workers, using identification codes provided by sympathizers within the station's staff. "Central hub ahead," Murphy whispered into his communicator. "Security is heavy. At least 20 enforcers and what looks like 5 biological commanders." "Can you bypass them?" Jake asked. "Negative. We need to go through that checkpoint to reach the Defense Control Center." "Hold position. We're implementing Plan B." Plan B involved a diversionary attack on the station's outer ring, far from Murphy's team, but significant enough to draw security resources away from the central hub. Jake gave the order, and a small group of ships broke formation, launching precision strikes against uninhabited sections of the station. Alarms blared throughout the massive structure. As predicted, security forces began to redeploy, rushing to counter the external threat. The checkpoint ahead of Murphy's team thinned out, reduced to just 7 enforcers and 2 commanders. "Moving now," Murphy announced. His team emerged from hiding, advanced weapons at the ready. The battle was brief but intense. The remaining guards fought with the desperation of those who knew they were making a last stand. When it was over, Murphy's forces had suffered casualties, but the path to the Defense Control Center lay open. They moved quickly, encountering only token resistance. Within 20 minutes, they had reached their objective, a vast chamber filled with holographic displays showing the station's formidable defenses and the rebel fleet beyond. "Beginning shutdown sequence," Murphy's technical specialist announced, fingers flying over alien control surfaces. Defense platforms powering down, shield generators coming offline, automated response systems disengaged. Murphy opened a channel to the fleet. "Morrison, we're green. The station is defenseless." Outside, the rebel fleet surged forward, encountering none of the devastating firepower they had expected. They entered the station's massive docking bays unopposed, troops pouring out to secure key locations. The few remaining council leaders, seeing the futility of resistance, surrendered with whatever dignity they could muster. In the council's grand assembly chamber, a vast space designed to accommodate beings of all sizes and environmental needs, Kate Sullivan addressed the representatives of 47 species. Some attended in person, others via holographic projection. All listened intently to the woman who had become the voice of the revolution. "Today marks the end of the Galactic Council as it was," she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "Its corruption, its tyranny, its belief in its own superiority, all have been consigned to history. But this need not be the end of cooperation between our peoples." She gestured to where Lisa Carter stood with delegates from the various rebel factions. "A new charter has been drafted, one founded on principles of true equality, transparency, and mutual respect. No species shall rule over others. No hidden clauses shall subvert our agreements. We will move forward together, as equals, or not at all." A murmur ran through the assembly. Uncertainty, hope, relief all mingled together. Some have asked about our message, the single word that became our battle cry. Sullivan's eyes swept the chamber. Run. It was not merely a threat to our enemies. It was a declaration that we would no longer stand still for oppression. That freedom, once in motion, cannot be contained. And it serves now as a warning to any who might consider the path the old council took. She paused, letting the word hang in the air between them. Run from tyranny. Run from corruption. Run toward a future we build together. The choice is yours. One by one, representatives from each species rose to signify their acceptance of the new charter. Even former council loyalists, seeing the overwhelming support for change, joined the consensus. The Galactic Alliance was born. In the months and years that followed, the scars of war gradually began to heal. Earth rebuilt, its cities rising from the ashes of occupation, with new designs that incorporated both human and alien architectural elements. The neural collars, symbols of enslavement, were melted down and reforged into monuments to freedom that graced public squares across the planet. Jake Morrison, offered a promotion to admiral, chose instead to lead exploration missions into uncharted space, seeking new civilizations to invite into the Alliance. Roy Blake established the first joint human-alien military academy, training a generation of officers committed to defending liberty throughout the galaxy. Susan Clark developed a new communication network that allowed instantaneous contact between Alliance worlds, drawing them closer together in cooperation and trade. Dr. Amy Rodriguez continued her work with xenotechnology, but now focused on medical applications rather than weapons. Her breakthroughs in combining human cellular regeneration techniques with hydrosian biochemistry led to treatments for diseases once thought incurable. Paul Murphy, the hero of the Central Station assault, found his calling in diplomacy rather than war, serving as Earth's representative to the Alliance Council. His first-hand experience of combat gave weight to his passionate advocacy for peaceful resolution of disputes. And Lisa Carter, who had signed the treaty that nearly doomed humanity, became the architect of a new era of interspecies cooperation. The guilt she carried transformed into determination that such a betrayal would never happen again. The transparency protocols she designed became the foundation of Alliance governance, ensuring that all agreements were clear, accessible, and equally binding on all parties. 5 years after the liberation of Earth, Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the observation deck of the new Alliance headquarters, a space station orbiting the neutral world of Kepler Prime. Below her, the crystalline spires she had once admired as a diplomat now gleamed with added purpose. Representatives from 53 species now gathered there regularly, the Alliance having grown beyond even the Council's reach. Jake joined her at the viewport, his uniform now bearing the insignia of the Alliance Exploration Corps. "Quite a view," he remarked. Hard to believe how far we've come. Sullivan nodded. From nearly enslaved to founding members of a true galactic community, we've earned our place among the stars. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if they hadn't betrayed us? If the treaty had been genuine? Sometimes, we might have been happier in the short term, but the corruption would have touched us eventually. She turned to face him. The council needed to fall. Jake, if not for us, then for all the species suffering under their rule. We just happened to be the catalyst. Jake smiled. The species they thought would be the easiest to subjugate. Their greatest miscalculation. Sullivan looked back out at the stars. Countless points of light representing worlds now linked in cooperation rather than dominance. They thought we would submit. Instead, we gave them a single word. Run, Jake said softly. Sullivan nodded. And the galaxy is better for it. Together, they watched as a new diplomatic vessel departed the station, bearing the Alliance insignia, a circle of stars around a central light, representing diverse worlds united in common purpose. The ship accelerated gracefully, then disappeared into the jump point, bound for a newly discovered civilization on the galaxy's edge. Another world to invite into the fellowship of free peoples. Another chance to demonstrate that true strength came not from domination, but from unity in diversity. Another opportunity to share the hard-won wisdom that liberty, once tasted, would be defended at all costs. And if needed, to offer would-be tyrants a single word of warning: run.